Amen. Well, we are going to finish this series up today. We started this quite a while back, quite a few weeks back, but it's been in the book of Ecclesiastes if you haven't been with us here. And so I'm really just going to read at the very end of Ecclesiastes and Ecclesiastes 12 today, and then I'm even going to look in some other books. But we've gone through this series, and it's about, the name of it, Hevel, is a Hebrew word, which just means, and I don't have this up here, I put it every other week, but it just means smoke, vapor, temporary, fleeting, insubstantial. And so what you see in Ecclesiastes, as you go through this book, you see the teacher who most believe it's Solomon. When you look at his life and you look at what he went through there, he is just talking about his life. Like he comes to the end, which we're going to be at today, and he kind of gives its conclusion, but he's looking back at his life after he's tried all this stuff. You and I can relate because we're in the world, we're trying to find meaning and purpose in our life and just everything we do, in our jobs, in people, in success, in things that we build. All this stuff, we're trying to find meaning and purpose in life. Every single one of us, we're here, we're trying to figure out what this is all about. And so that's what he did, and this is his almost memoirs of his life, looking back at the things that he tried, and he tried all this stuff, and that's the word that he used on that when he would come to the end. He would say everything is meaningless, or everything is vanity, which is this word, hevel. Just everything is hevel. Everything is it's like smoke. It's like vapor. And I don't have my illustration anymore because I broke it. And it was hevel. But it's like if we had just some smoke up here, it's like that's what it is. And that's the picture of what he's saying is like all these things that he tried, it just seemed like that was going to do it. It seemed like this is what I needed. This is the thing that I've been searching out in my life. And he would pour into it, whatever that it was. You can read about all his ventures and his experiments in life, and nothing really ever did it for him. Maybe he brought some joy into his life for a little bit. I mentioned last week, sin will bring joy into our life for a little while. Again, it wouldn't be a temptation for us. It wouldn't be difficult for us. We wouldn't want to go back to it over and over again sometimes if it wasn't good sometimes. Sin does that. It's enticing in that way, but it never does it. It never does what we think it's going to do. We think it's going to give us fulfillment, whatever that it was. It's just like smoke. It's like we grab at it, we see it there, and it slips through our fingers, and we find this isn't what my life and everything I'm all about is really trying to find. This isn't going to do it for me. And so if we don't pursue after God, we're going to be trying all these other things. And that's what he did. He was trying out all this stuff, and it was always the same thing. Everything is meaningless. Everything is hevel. Nothing ever did it for him. It was all insubstantial. So that's us. That's how we can understand this. And that's why I think it speaks to us and it's so relevant for us today, because that's what we do. That is our life. We all come here, and sometimes, I've said before, we come in here and maybe we pretend like we all have it down. Like we come in here and we're like, we're the ones who have figured it all out. We're the authentic, true people in the world. Everyone else just needs to look at us. And we're probably like putting on fronts a lot of times. We're in here and we're looking for answers so often. And then we leave here and the week comes and jobs and bills and things break and all this stuff, and we're looking around and we're trying to find meaning and purpose through all this stuff, and that's really where it was. So we're going to be wrapping up today looking at this. But I found, there's a few things that I found in this book, and I'll put it up here, this first thing here. Life involves both risk and opportunity. That's one thing that I see that Solomon found through his book. As you go through, he comes to the end and he tells you the purpose of all this. He tells you what it was all about, his conclusion of the matter. But along the way, there was a bunch of things that he would kind of sprinkle in some wisdom and some truth along the way. And he would learn some things as he was going through this, as he was going through his explanation of his journey and his existential journey in his life. But he was showing us some things along the way. And I definitely see that. I definitely see that life does involve both risk and opportunity. All these risks, all these opportunities that are out there. And as we're trying to figure out our life, I think it comes in more clearly when we come closer to God, but it definitely involves both risk and opportunity. It's just about finding our purpose and meaning in this planet with him. There's a statement that I've heard someone say before. It's called moralistic therapeutic deism. Moralistic therapeutic deism. And really that's just what some sometimes put out there. And it's the idea that, okay, God's there, he made us, he just kind of left us alone though, but he wants us to do good. So we need to be doing some good things. If we really need him, we can search out for him, he'll show up or whatever and help out. But really the purpose is just to be good, do good things, good people go to heaven, and we just think about just do good in that way. And the thing about it is it leaves out so much of the gospel. It leaves out so much of what he's talking about, so much of what Christ did, and so much of living for him. It leaves out some of those things. So that's not what I'm talking about here, and that's not what Solomon really was coming to the end, what he was talking about. I think he was maybe in the middle of this book, but he came to a different conclusion. So let's go there. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and read like the answer to all of this book. Like he comes to the very end, verse 13 and 14. Now you could argue and say, maybe it would be good to read this first and then go through the book. But I think he wrote it that way for a reason, just to kind of show, maybe to draw us all in as we're reading along, as we're going through this book. We're thinking, he's right, but what is he talking about? So let's read that. Now all has been heard. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. So he just comes at it like that. All this stuff, all this venture, all these things that he's poured his life into, and he comes to that. Fear God and keep his commandments. And I'll just put it back up there on again. That's the thing. That's what it's all about. That's what he's talking about. That's his book. Now we'll kind of expound on that a little bit, but that's really what he's saying there, what this whole thing, what life really comes down to in so many ways. Fear God and keep his commandments. It may be simplistic. Maybe you're looking at that and you're like, I thought there'd be a whole lot more. We've gone through this. Last week was like a deep topic and all this stuff, and now you just come here to the very end and you just say, it's just fear God and keep his commandments. Be on your way, have a great day, It does seem a little bit simplistic in a way right there. He just said fear God and keep his commandments. I think Solomon offers a couple of remedies for problems that maybe we can see here in this book. This isn't up here on the screen, but I'll just say it in this way. For the people who lack purpose and direction, they should fear God and keep his commandments, like he said right there. For those who, looking for purpose and direction, fear God and keep his commandments. This is what he's calling us to do. Those who think, this is another part as we go through this book, and we saw this as he was saying this, as we were agreeing with him about the state of the world and the state of just our life and some of the things that we can agree with that just seem unfair and stupid and just unjust. For those who just think everything is unfair, they should remember that God will review every person's life to determine how they responded to him, and he is going to bring every deed into judgment. So I offer that as a encouragement for us. Like, it's not just, we can go around here and spend all day just talking about things that are out there that we're like, it shouldn't be that way. Something should be changed. These people need to change. This policy needs to change. Government needs to change. We can just all go through all these things and be like, this world is a mess, and we could start a riot here. I don't want to do that. But we could just go crazy and be like, yes, it's a mess. It's crazy. We could go around there and we can say that, but I offer that as an encouragement that he's saying here is that, okay, it is unfair, but God is doing something behind the scene, and he is going to bring every deed into judgment. It's not as if he's not ever going to move. He's not doing anything. He is going to, and I think that's offered, we can see in this book. But let me say something this way. I think this is important. I'll put this up there on the screen. Knowing God changes the meaning of everything. Knowing him, even you can see that in this book. You can see as you go through it, he's writing back. He's writing this, it's like a sermon. He's writing it out there, and he's talking about his journeys along the way. But that is a huge thing. That is a key in this book. Knowing him changes everything, because as you see all these things, he's writing out this stuff that every one of us are going to relate with in some way, some different type of things, some things that we've tried, some things we've tried to pour our lives into, and it's hard. But that's the key to what he's trying to say about this. Knowing God changes the meaning of everything. It changes the meaning of what that book is. It changes the meaning of the things that happen in our life. Two people can go through the same things, and I would argue that there's going to be a different meaning, or you're going to see a different meaning in that, whether or not you have that relationship with God. That's what I see that he's pointing out there in that. So as we go through this book, and it's like a roller coaster of emotions, really, in a lot of ways, as you go through it. Because I've been saying, we go through it, and maybe we're in there, and maybe a lot of people are like, yeah, I see what he's saying there. Like, it's exactly true. Like, why is this happening? Why is this person this way? I can give you names, not just generalities. I can tell you names about people of why they're doing this, and they're evil, and they're advancing. And then this person over here who deserved this promotion or deserved this thing or whatever, deserved not to die. why does that happen to them? And this person over here who is evil in every way, they're having everything that they want. We can all agree with that. And I think we would go through this book and we would be like Solomon. And we would just be, exactly. Somebody's finally saying what I think and what we're all thinking there. And you can kind of be taken along there. But then again, it comes to the end of it. And it's like, okay, so he's saying, fear God. This is about him. It's actually about him. It's not as if he's there and he's not doing anything. This apparent chaotic mess, maybe I'll just take out apparent, this chaotic mess that we see, I've said many times, our life, just the world, other people's lives, this chaotic mess. So what he's telling us and encouraging us with is that God's actually there. He's actually doing something behind the curtain of all this. There is a plan. There's something happening. The creator of the universe is still in control. And he's actually doing something there. I think that's some things that he really offers in there. I want to read a little bit here in Job, because I said before that Job is a lot in this same type of writing. I mentioned before, you can go into Proverbs, and Proverbs is a lot like, do good things are going to happen. You do bad things are going to happen. We see that. But then there's always those, but I've seen it happen this way. Why does it not match up with Proverbs? And that in a lot of ways is Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, he's pointing out some of those things that it doesn't always line up the way we think. And Job's the same way. Job is probably something we know more of. We know about his life. I'm not going to go through all that. You probably know some about him. But I want to go here more towards the end. Because if you remember, Job he's been questioned by his friends. His friends were wrong. They're coming at him and they're like, you must have sinned, Job, because this is horrible what you're going through. This is bad. All this stuff, you had to have sinned. That's the only explanation for you lost your family and you lost your health and all this stuff that's going on. That's the only explanation for these things happening. And he continued to say, I didn't do anything that way. I don't know what you guys are saying. You're wanting me to lie to you and say that I've sinned and I've done all these things, but I haven't. And he's going along, and now he's really kind of demanding God to give an explanation. Like, where is he? If he was there, I just want to know why all this is happening. And he's asking for this right now. And this is where God finally speaks. This is in Job 38. This is where he comes out there. 38, 2 through 4. I'm just going to read a little bit of it because God says a lot. He says, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I really never want God to say that to me. Brace yourself like a man. I am a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. And really, I was trying to figure out where to stop. I just want to stop there. You can read on about it because he lays into all this stuff. This is something I've mentioned here before in sermons, but just read all that because God goes through this and he explains. He talks about just creation, creating the earth, separating water, and water and light and land. I mean, separating water. We're not talking about like he had a petri dish and he's like moving it around, shaking it around. It's like water on the earth. He's separating. He's what he's saying. Like, I'm telling water how far to go, or land. This is what I want you to do. He's like carving out land. Like God is just doing this. I'm separating light from darkness. It's like, is this real? Like this is literally what he's talking about. Not just speaking of, figuratively or whatever, but he's talking about creation. All this stuff. Universes, he even talks about loosening the belt of Orion. Just things in there that are flat out ridiculous to people. He's making it clear to him. He's saying, okay, where were you when I did this? Do you know anybody Job, that can do all this stuff, that can, loosen the belt of Orion, tell water to, this is how far you can go, land and all this? And the obvious answer is no. And I think Job is right there understanding this. This is ridiculous to think about this. People can't do this. And this is Job's first response. I'll skip down a little bit. In Job 40, 4 through 5. After God comes to him and says, let him who accuses God answer him. And that was God to him. And Job's like, I am unworthy. Like he starts off good there. That's perfect. I am unworthy. We're not worthy. Whatever he was doing there. I am unworthy. How could I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more. So he's there. Just in my summary of what he's doing there, Job shows up, drops his head, hands probably shaking, knees knocking, he's looking for an extra pair of underwear after this conversation with God. I just fear, he just has this fear and this reverence for God. I mean, it's just like, I think he understands, like, who was I to be questioning this, to be questioning God? God actually spoke. You and I, we may never in our lifetime experience something like that he had there, but he had this very real conversation right there with God. It's amazing to me, but he's there and he's humbled in an enormous way. And this is his final response. I know that you can, this is in 42, 2 through 6. Job answers again, just his final response there. I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I didn't understand, things too wonderful for me to know. You said, listen now and I will speak. I will question you and you shall answer me. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. And just think about that. Maybe, like, there's times I look at this and I'm like, I need to have this type of reverence and fear and awe, worship of God. Not just, oh, he's my friend, I'll talk to him, I'll get to him now and then. But I mean, just this real, genuine, like, physical reaction to God. Like, he sees him, he's in the presence of him. And who am I? Like, I despise myself. I need to repent in dust and ashes. I mean, he's seeing this. God, no plan of yours can be thwarted. I mean, he just sees him. He's changed. Job's come to this level of understanding that I think Solomon did in Ecclesiastes. He's come to this level of understanding, okay, this is all about God. This is about him. It's not about me. He's pointing to him. He's come to this level of understanding that just changes the way he acts, the way he lives, the way he responds to God. I think that when you come to this understanding of God, it changes the way you approach the Bible. It changes the way we do this. It changes the way you live and the way you worship, the way you do everything. It changes all of that. It just affects your whole life. And here's a question that I would want everybody to answer. And I actually brought this up on Friday. I was saying I was going to talk about this, but here's a question I think every one of us should answer. And honestly, I think our lives, just the way we live and the way we do things, is probably going to answer that. But here's a question, and I'll put this up here. Is God worth worshiping regardless of what happens? I think we do. I think we need to come to an answer to that. That is something that you're going to, just in your life and everything you do, you're going to answer it regardless. It's going to show in your actions and how you respond to when things happen. But is God worth worshiping regardless of what happens? I bring that up because I think that's a whole lot of what the book of Job honestly is about. It's not just about bad things happening to good people and demanding answers from God. It's just about, if this stuff happens to you, is he still worth worshiping? And we can go into this even further, and I can say, well, okay, say your life is terrible. Everything, it sucks. It's crappy, however you want to say it. Everything is just terrible. All this stuff is happening to you. It's terrible, okay? Maybe it's the worst it's ever been in your life. Let me just go further than this and say, what if it gets worse, right? Like I know I need to work on my encouragement skills and stuff. No, everybody's like, no. Look, I'm not praying for this to happen. I don't want it to get worse for you. But what if it does? Like, I'm just saying, like, let's come to this point. Let's see, what if it does? Is God still worth worshiping? Or is it just like, no, he's only worth worshiping if he does this much, or if he doesn't do this to me. If he goes that far, then, I don't know. I don't know that I would do that. Now, no, I'm not trying to put in our minds that God's going to sin. He cannot sin. But I'm just saying, is he still worth worshiping, regardless of what does happen in our life, or that he allows maybe to happen around us? Is he still worth worshiping? It's not like we can have these demands from God, like, you have to do this for me. It's not like a prenup with God, like, okay, I will come to you as long as you don't do this, and if you do, I'm pulling back. I'm holding these things back from you because just in case you do this, it's off, God. I'm going to break this relationship. We can maybe laugh, but I think some people are that way, and he's asking everything from us, which is hard, which is difficult sometimes, because it's like he wants my whole life. And I would encourage you with that and say, but that is the best possible way. He knows everything. He created you in his image to have a relationship, and he wants to give you life. He wants to give you real life. But that is the thing. We are kind of back here like Solomon and like Job, not understanding everything that's going to happen in front of us. And all we know is there's this kind of demand from God. He's saying, I'm not going to tell you everything that's going to happen, but I am asking you for everything, which is scary, which is difficult for us, especially if you're a controlling person. It's hard to give up everything to him, but that's what he's asking from us. Are we willing to do that? This is where the teacher was. This is where he was in there. In the fear of God, that's what he's saying there. That's what it's about. In the beginning, we see in Proverbs, he says that the fear of God is the beginning of knowledge, which is fitting because fearing him rightly and reverencing him is so important, and we come to that by faith in him. Let me read this verse here. Hebrews 11:6 talks about faith and that coming to him in faith and kind of what that means. Even throw in your notes 11:1 if you want to read that to kind of understand about faith. It's more than just a blind step out there of nothing. But Hebrews 11:6, he says, and without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. I don't know what you may be going through. I don't know what anybody's fearing or what everybody's going through in their life. We don't know everybody's things. I don't know the questions you have. You see all the time, we love questions here. We want that. I don't know the questions you have. I don't know the questions or reasons maybe you haven't fully jumped in or at all with God. I don't know all those things. There's all different kind of reasons people have. I don't know what it is, but what I do see and what I've seen in this extremely relevant journey that we read about in Ecclesiastes is that it doesn't make sense until we finally give it all to him, until we trust in him. That's the point of that book is he's going along and he comes to the very end and we see his conclusion there in all of that. Fear God and keep his commandments. That's what it came down to in that. Everything looks chaotic and random and just kind of a flat out mess in our life and in this world. But God is still God. He's still good. He's still there in control, and he's still doing things behind the scenes. That's what all throughout the Bible we see. That's what we see so many questions that people have. All throughout the Bible, they're looking, and they're like, God, why are you doing this? Why are you allowing this mess to happen? I don't get it. You see story after story after story, and they kind of came to that same conclusion that Solomon did. It's about him. It's about fearing him. It's about coming to him in this relationship. And you and I know even more clearly, you think about it in the New Testament times after Jesus, it's about coming to Christ in faith, coming to Jesus, his son, in faith. That's what it was all pointing to. The Old Testament, it was pointing up to the most clear picture of it, and it's trusting in Jesus. That's what we see, and that's what we see that he's talking about there, and it's this thing by faith. That's what he's talking about. There's a reason we're here. We're not I don't believe we're just a chaotic mess. We're not just a random mess that just happened to be here in this world, but we are created by God. It's not just a random mess, a chance of just molecules in motion. I believe we are created in the image of God, and he put us here to have that relationship with him. That's what I see, and it makes sense when I come to know him. When I came to know him, and I get into his word, and the more I pursue him and get to know him, this stuff, it makes more sense to us. You're not going to have it all down. You're not going to understand everything. He is God. We're not. There's times when you see in Scripture that he tells us his ways are way higher than ours. I said a few weeks ago, like the idea is know your role. Like us, we are not God. We don't know everything. We can't know everything. He is God. But he's asking us just to trust in him with our lives. I've used this illustration before. Pull it out of my pocket there. I've used this illustration. I don't even remember if it was here at the church or it was when we were over at the hotel. I just made this a little while ago because I almost forgot about it. But picture this goes on forever, Use your imagination. But this represents eternity. And some of y'all may remember me talking about this before. But I want us to think about this, especially with this book, and as we talk about Hevel, as we talk about pursuing things in this life and trying to figure out what this is all about. But this is eternity. And here's the idea we think about. Here's our life. This red piece of tape right here, this is our life. This is maybe where we are. We're think about all the things we try to do in our life. It's like we're a kid here. I want to grow up. I can't wait till I get there. And you get to this point, and now you're, in college or whatever. Now you're working, and now you're wishing you could go back, because you don't want to work. And I hate being an adult. And we're on social media. We're always saying this adulting is terrible. All this stuff. So we're there, and we're working. And it's like, okay, I got to work really hard. I got to do as much as I can. Maybe it's in school or whatever, so I can get to this job and work really hard, make a ton of money, so that when I get to this point, that I can finally have money, maybe get out of debt, maybe, and have some fun or do some things that I always wanted to do. And man, this is when I'm going to be living right here. I can't wait till I get to this point so I can live it up from there to there. It's like, I just can't wait. That's the dream. That's what this is all about. No, I would say that's almost like Hevel. It's almost, as we've been looking through this, that's our picture of this, is like so short-sighted. What about all this? What about eternity? It goes on and on and on, this eternity, but our total focus, Solomon and where he was, and where you and I, it's hard not to be completely focused on this because we're here in this world. We haven't been on to eternity. We haven't seen that, but we're in this little section here, and we're so fixated on it. This is what our whole life is about. This is what everything is. And I think he's pointing us to say, let's think about further. If anything, I just want that visual, just to kind of look at that and think, there is more than just this short life. That answers a whole lot of questions. That answers a lot of the questions where we're saying, like, well, when's God going to do this? When is he going to show up? When is he going to make this right? I thought God was good. I thought he was greater than all this. How come there's still a mess? If I was God, I would do this. I would change it this way. We're not God, though. We don't understand what he's doing there behind the scenes. And there is this eternity, and we're just focused on this little section in this life. And we don't see those things, but he's saying, I am going to do those things. I promise I'm going to do this. Maybe even in this life, it doesn't change everything. Maybe in this life, everything's not fixed, but there is an eternity, and there will be judgment. There will be justice. There will be his love. Those who trusted in his son, man, we're going to be there with him with no pain, no suffering, all that good stuff. I see that. But with this idea of not turning to him, I think it just kind of leads to this pursuit of all these other things. I've got to find meaning in this life, and you're always going to be empty. You're always going to come up empty-handed. You're never going to find that purpose and meaning in life. But that renewing of our minds, that transformation that takes place in Romans 12, and just the new creation that talks about in 2 Corinthians 5:17, it changes our focus. It does. I've said to you guys, get into the Word, read this stuff. It's God's Word. It does change your life. Read these things. There is this renewing of mind. There's a change. He changes our perspective. And so this world, everything that didn't make sense, that was crazy, that was chaotic, maybe it doesn't change everything. Maybe you're still out there. Maybe you're still wondering the same. Maybe you're like, I still don't know why all this stuff is happening. I still don't know why I haven't got these things that I was wanting, or these things haven't changed. Maybe none of that changes. But now our perspective is a little bit different. It's like, okay, I'm still clueless as ever. That's me sometimes. I'm still clueless as ever. But it's his faith now. I've changed. Now I believe, okay, the creator of the universe, he is there. He is doing something. I see this, and so it kind of makes sense. And so some things do actually make sense to me. God is, okay, he's allowing this. He's doing this for a reason. And there have been some things that he's allowed me to like look back on and see, okay, this crazy, chaotic mess that you wanted to give up and quit in and these things here and turn away and do these other things. Now you can look back and see what I was doing, and I'm like, I see it now. I always believed it, God. It's like, no. Now we can see that. Now we can understand. We can trust in him with this very real, powerful confidence that you didn't have before, that comes through faith. Comes through faith in Christ. And so you can find purpose. There is meaning. There's purpose in life. In everything, as Solomon said, under the sun. Like there's meaning, there's purpose. I think it also leads just a side thing, like a bonus thing, is like when you come to know him, it's like now we can have real joy and happiness in this life. This isn't all there is. This is temporary. Then there's on to eternity. But I've seen that in my life. I've seen, now I can actually have joy in some things. Like okay, you can have happiness in this life. I hope you don't think, even as a Christian, that we just need to go around dressed as monks, and we can't have any happiness and we just have to separate and do nothing. I hope you understand, like, nothing against monks there. I don't know why I used them there. but you can have joy. You can have some happiness. I want us to understand that. And it's in Christ. I think it changes us. And so purpose and meaning comes in that relationship with him. And that hevel that we see really disappears. That grasping for the wrong things disappears. And it's like now we're in this relationship with the creator of the universe. And it's like, okay, I'm still lost. I'm still kind of clueless on some of these things, but I believe, I trust, and it just changes our whole perspective. It changes our whole life and everything that we're doing. And that's the change that I hope happens, you guys. I hope you guys have liked going through this book, and I hope you'll go through it again on your own. Continue to read more about this. But man, I pray for you guys and for all of us. Like, let's pursue him. That's where I believe this purpose and happiness and joy. That's the thing that I think that we're missing sometimes, and it's all in him. You guys, I'm gonna close this out right